All right, and welcome back for another episode of This Week in Charts via Carnivore Trades and Wall Street from Main Street. If you haven't done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find Jason on Patreon. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts, analysis, and live day trading. Anyways, let's get into it. This week here, so markets having a up week. We did have a shortened holiday shortened week, so we had Wednesday off. But overall, markets kind of just having a decent, you can see here we pushed up into the 5,500 handle and pulled back by the end of the week. A few things to note here. I do believe we're getting a little bit close to another pullback here. We've had a pretty good rally from 5,200 to 55, so 300-point rally. But I do think we are getting into that period here now that we have options X out of the way, where we could see a little bit of weakness here in the tape. And one of the things that we're definitely keeping an eye on here, so we're looking at the NASDAQ 100 right now, is does this start to weaken here? So you can see, look at the weekly candle of the NASDAQ 100, kind of a little a gravestone doji or a shooting star candle versus the SPX, which has a similar setup, but a little bit more strength in the SPX. And one thing that we also noted this week was the Dow was a little bit stronger. So again, take a look here. Pretty good looking candle on the weekly of the Dow. Also, the Russell showed a little bit of relative strength towards the end of the week as well. And we saw certain sectors here start to change. So XLE here having a pretty good week despite coming off the highs. By the end, XLP, we don't talk about that very often here, but consumer staples, putting in a nice little wedge here on the weekly time frame, getting ready for a possible another bid up here. So certain sectors starting to see a little bit of money rotation possibly. And that's been something that's been speculated for a while, but we have the quarterly OPEX out of the way now. And a lot of the time these can mark some certain turning points. Take a look at Nvidia. Everybody's hyper focused on Nvidia, of course, overtaking Microsoft in market cap, but saw a pretty good decline the last 2 days. Possibly seeing some money flow rotate out of that. And what's going to be important to note, or important to take a look at going into the summer months here, is if we do get a pullback in the next couple of weeks, specifically in tech and specifically chips. You see the SMH pulling back in there, down 1.5% on Friday after the pretty good reversal on Thursday. By the way, almost a 50% gain in the SMH since April 19th, and we look at Nvidia here, was up 42% at one point from the split announcement, which is just, so this isn't a $100 billion company, right? It's 2.3 trillion to 3.3 trillion in about 3 weeks. So massive, insane blow-off type action here. But the question is, do chips pull back here? Do we see that rotation continue into these other sectors? You see the Russell 2000 small caps here. If that happens, I think there's a very good chance we have another leg up in the markets. That doesn't mean that we won't have a pullback, and obviously these tech stocks make up a large weighting in the S&P. But can that happen? That's the big question here. In the short term, we've got a little bit of support at 5,400. There's a gap fill at 5,375 essentially, and then 5,325 to 5,350 is kind of the bigger level there on the downside should we retrace. So that's going to be the real key here to look at moving forward. There are a few other risks too. So looking at kind of the dollar yen, there is some talk about more intervention there, as that is getting back to that April high. And as Jason and I have speculated here, do they just throw out some more swap lines? We talked about this. If you go check out the interview with Japanese banks being in trouble, and there being some margin calling there. Is more intervention on the table? And if so, does the Fed kind of paper over this, or can they paper over it? But in any case, some risks on the table here overall. And again, obviously just systemic risks with Nvidia and some of these other chips being so. You got Broadcom. Not a lot of people talk about Broadcom. Everybody's hyper focused on Nvidia, but this is a big one too. Making it all the way up to almost 1,900 before a pretty good sell. And again, Broadcom is now, in case you're unaware, it doesn't get a lot of press, but this is, I think, number 9. So number 8 in the NASDAQ 100. So $775 billion company. So again, these chip stocks, do they come in? And you got TSM too. We don't talk about that very often, TSM. But that's the big question to me. Can we see that continued move into other sectors on this tape here? But in any case, those are the levels there on the S&P. So around 53.25 to 53.50, I think, is pretty good support here in the near term for the Qs. Again, you've got the gap fill around 470, 468, and then 460 is your next big level. If we could round trip it as well down to 450, but that would be pretty good support there for the Qs on the downside. IWM, again, so this is kind of the key here. Can we keep these weekly higher lows? If we do, I think we can push up into 210, and I don't think 210 holds a third or fourth time. I mean, yeah, 1, 2, 3 times we've hit it. If we hit it a fourth, I don't think it really holds here. So that's going to be the key. Can they rotate that capital into the summer months, and do we get into a summer doldrums period where we just get more light volume and more melt up type action? There's the Dow here with the higher lows as well. Got to get through this 393 handle, and then it can go and challenge 398 to 400 once again. SMH we talked about here again. Big level in the short term is 240 and then 230 there for the semiconductors. Another sector I think could be rotation, which is in technology, is the IGV, and we can take a look here at the weekly. So I really like this chart pattern here. Nice tight bull flag. In fact, let's zoom out a little bit more. Nice tight bull flag there on the weekly, and it's starting to peak above now. So again, obviously, if we see money come out of chips, we need to see some other tech sector take the mantle, and I think cloud software could be that sector that takes over here, and it is peaking above this kind of wedge, or excuse me, bull flag here. And yeah, if we get a breakout, I mean, this can go back to all-time highs pretty quickly. So something to keep an eye on. Another sector here, everybody's talking about recession, but take a look at the transports having a good week. So again, looking at the weekly candle, pretty much closing right near the highs, unlike the rest of the market, which did come in off the highs by the end of the week. And again, last week we talked about this tail candle here. Did they suck in some shorts there? It's very possible. So transport's getting some money flow. And again, these are things that we've seen glimpses of over the last couple of months, but we need to see it continue into the summertime if we're going to see that continued rally. Again, assuming the chip trade does slow down. XHB here pulling back. So this was a sector that was weaker, and we're back below that wedge. So again, a little bit of weakness there. You do have lower highs, but you also have higher lows. We could actually, we could cheat here and do this too. So that's why technical analysis is art, not science. But that's a level that the market's respecting, and we'll continue to watch it. But overall, big picture, weekly is just a big consolidation pattern here for XHB and VNQ too. Another sector seeing a little bit of rotation too. So a flat week, but we hit this trend line and we haven't rejected. So that's what I look for when I look for strength here. When you go up into a level, does it reject hard, or does it just kind of pull back and then hold up? And right now it's pulling back and holding up. So this is a sector that if it can continue to do that and put in a base, I think it can push higher. Excuse me, XLF here did have a good bounce. It came off the highs a week ago, and then it had a strong close to the week. Financials have been in a range here, but again, just kind of digesting this big up move. We do have some bank earnings. Well, not till next month, but again, that could be something that could be a little bit of a catalyst going into the summer months. I'm just pulling something up here. So take a look here. A few other financial names starting to pick up. A little bit lesser known here, but we're also seeing some strength in some of the majors. JPM, Goldman, they have backed off of the highs, but JPM getting right back up there. We saw Goldman here hit the 50 MA late last week. And again, not a terrible pattern here. So if we see that continue and we see strength in financials, I think the market's okay. That's always a good sign of health. Regionals still on the softer side, but they got a bounce this week. And KBE, again, down on Friday here, but again, nothing really terrible here on the weekly time frame. Broker dealers here, again, still in that kind of pullback pattern. It's very similar to the chart of Goldman there. All right, so over to commodities now. So crude here had a really good bid off the lows. You actually got this drawn in already, but you can see here. I'll get rid of this so we can see it. Well, I talked about the possibility of it going higher into the 82 handle, and that's pretty much what happened. We got up to 81.79, and we backed right off of that old trend line. So very good action here. A lot of shorts down there at the lows, and you're going to see we went right into a 618. So I'm expecting this to probably pull back a little bit here. I don't know what crude wants to do in the medium term. I think, I think it's likely we trade up into July. That's kind of seasonally what we expect, but it's also an election year, so I don't know how much higher it can realistically go before they come up with something to push it back down by the election. But good rally there. A lot of shorts got caught off sides at the lows. I did manage to get this low. I did not hold it the whole time, unfortunately, but it was still a good bounce play nonetheless. But we'll expect some type of I would say here in the near term, probably some type of a zigzag and then a peak into July. But I'm not personally playing it at the moment, though. XLE, I do find this very interesting. You guys know I've been talking about these levels for a month now. But right down here, 86, 87, I like it in that area. If we can get one more dip into that 618, I think this is a good area to pick up some energy stocks. We're seeing that kind of unwind here as Nvidia pulled back yesterday. Take a look at that big surge on XLE. And we look at Nvidia, it just kind of ate that market share up. So there's nothing wrong with the market when you see that. You can have pullbacks as long as you're seeing other sectors take up the buying pressure or soak up that selling, rather. It's not the end of the world. XOP, same kind of look there. And OIH as well. So I think energy is intriguing here. Uranium so CCJ kind of backing off the highs here. This looks a little softer on the daily. The weekly is still fine. There's been, not really much to update with uranium lately. It's just kind of in this weekly uptrend and grinding higher. I will say the URNM is a little bit softer now. And specifically the NJ, so the juniors, that looks like it needs to go down and test 23. I wouldn't get bearish on this until we get below this pivot, 2292 on a weekly close. If you close the week below that, I'm bearish on junior uranium miners. But until then, it's just bullish consolidation until proven otherwise. Nat gas here pulled back pretty nicely this week. I'd be interested in a bounce around 250. That's about all I would consider even doing with it at the moment, until probably August or so. Dollar index continues to be strong. So we talked about the dollar yen, and I've been on this train for a while. I've been saying, look, the dollar, everybody got bearish down here, and I said, look, as long as we're above that green bar low on a weekly closing basis, there's nothing wrong here. And dollar starting to curl back up here inside of this wedge. You can break that. The dollar's got serious legs. Serious legs. So don't count the dollar out. And again, I know there's a lot of talk about the Saudis, but we go through this all the time, right? They're dumping the dollar. That's it. Dollar's going to crash, and dollar actually rallied. So that's the fact of the matter right now. Gold here with an interesting little. So we had the bear flag here pop, and then it was a little fake out. So pretty good reversal there on Friday. I'm still thinking 2250 is probably needs to get tested. Otherwise, this can just go sideways here, up in this range. And, if this weekly 20 MA catches up to price, which it's trying to do now, this can act as fuel for another pump. I'm expecting it kind of like, not really in July, but towards the end of the summer. I think that's when we're going to start looking for gold and silver to make another run. But they're still holding up, and specifically silver, because you're still really extended here on the weekly and the monthly. So it's a good pop. I think it just needs to digest a little bit more, and then it can really start to get going. Platinum may have bottomed. I was looking for a little bit lower here, around 845. It can still get there, or 840. Sorry, 940. We'll call it 940. And it, got to this little trend line here and got a bid. Platinum's a tricky one because it's very thin. But once it gets going, it doesn't look back. And the same thing with palladium. Kind of got close to that double bottom. It got a bid. I wouldn't rule out coming back down there again. But again, once these metals get going, they just kind of go and they don't look back before you realize it's up 500 points. But I do like it down here. I think it's very cheap. And you may be looking at some type of a monthly pattern double bottom here on palladium. There we go. Right into that area. So possibly a little like a W type pattern there. Copper here backed off on Friday. I'm still looking for that to go to 425. So nothing changed there. And then Bitcoin here, that Bitcoin backed off a little bit again this week, but I kind of like this pullback because it's just kind of grinding down. It's not like, again, it's not like hitting here and then like rejecting. It's just kind of grinding down, right? And if we look at an RSI here, it's just kind of grinding down into that oversold area. I think this could be a candidate for a pretty good bid into the next week or two if it can kind of grind down into the low 60s, which it's trying to do right now. But yeah, Bitcoin fine. Again, still same thing on the weekly. I'm kind of thinking this is going to go with gold towards like next month or two, towards end of summer. But short term, I think you can get an uptick here if we can get some type of a capitulation, like again, not big term capitulation, but like a short term kind of capitulation. I think you could get a good rally towards 70 again. But big picture, no problems here with Bitcoin. So again, spiders here up to 5,500. That's my target one for summertime. I think 56, that's still my target too. Maybe a little higher, we'll see. There's some other factors that go into that. But again, I think we will get some type of a pullback here. A lot of people are expecting a market top right now. I think that's why we'll probably pull back and then go higher. But right now, market's holding up. Again, we got to look for that rotation though. If we don't get it, then the market's in trouble. But as long as we're seeing, Nvidia can pull back, Broadcom can pull back. But as long as you see, other tech sectors, IGV, if we see stocks like Netflix continue to rally, Amazon continuing to rally nicely. Take a look at Google here, trying to push to 52-week highs. We can see rotation to those areas, XLE, XLP, all these other places. It's fine. It's not that it doesn't have to be a chip-led rally. So just bear that in mind. So anyways, guys, going to wrap it up here. You guys take care. Come find Jason on Patreon. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. I'll see you guys all next week.